Great to see you, and I'm really happy to be introducing Dr. Carl Galland. He's going to be working with us on double tonguing. We have a fourth-year student doing their last recital, and he's going to take a listen. Then we're going to talk about kind of engaging as musicians and kind of furthering our careers through engagement. So I'm really pumped, and I want to tell you just a little bit about Dr. Galland. He has distinguished himself as an international and national clarinetist. He made his international solo debut, and if I pronounce something wrong, I'm so sorry. In Cadriog?
Cadriorg, actually.
Cadriorg, Palace of Tallinn.
Yep.
In Estonia, collaborating with the St. Petersburg String Quartet in 2017, and his New York debut in Weill Concert Hall of Carnegie Hall in 2018. He has additionally collaborated as a soloist with the Sewanee Chamber Orchestra and has been a finalist in several music competitions. This includes first prize in the 198th Army Reserve Solo Competition in Rochester, New York, receiving Best Overall Performance from Pershing's Own Army Band members in 2014. And second prize in the 4th Allian Baltic Solo Competition. I hope I said all that right. So there's tons more to his bio, but I just want to give you kind of a preview of what he's doing right now. As an educator, Dr. Galland teaches clarinetists of all ages and skill sets, including college-level students, as well as 4th grade through high school and adult students. An actively performing pedagogue, Dr. Galland has an upcoming lecture recital at the ICA conference, but not this summer. We've gone.
That'll be next summer, yeah.
Next summer. And he's going to be presenting on performing the music of Brahms with a historically inspired creative interpretation and an upcoming virtual clarinet recital, or has this already happened?
That has already happened, yeah.
Okay, and then he recently played a clarinet recital featuring all women composers in the South Central College Music Society Conference in March 2021. Oh yeah, of course. With works by Clara Schumann and Libby Larson. Dr. Galland also actively teaches clarinet masterclasses at schools such as Nazareth College and James Madison University. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Good, and you should be able to share your screen. I'm going to leave it unmuted so you can hear what we're doing here and trying with you. Is that okay?
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Take it away.
All right, everyone. I'm so glad to be presenting to all of you, and I thought double tonguing might be something that you haven't heard of before. Myself, I used to play the trumpet, and I play some saxophone and flute, so I kind of learned double tonguing through that way. And on clarinet, I think I learned it as a way to adapt. I mean, sometimes wind ensemble music is so crazy, you have to play articulation at 140. So double tonguing can be really useful. So I'm going to share the screen to show some double tonguing exercises and kind of talk about it a little bit. So what is double tonguing? Well, it means when you're double tonguing, you are using the front of your tongue and the back of your tongue, and you're alternating. So when you, I'm just going to read through this explanation here. When you're playing double tonguing, you can practice a D articulation pattern, or you can say T key. So the D is the front of your mouth, and then the G is the back of your mouth. So in yourself right now, you can try this, just saying diggy 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 d, or tiki 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 t. It doesn't have to be the E syllable. It could be oo, like tuku 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 tu. I kind of like thinking that sometimes. So what kind of happens, sometimes usually when you're playing double tonguing, the back of the tongue articulation isn't strong enough. So it's good to practice the D-gi, diggy 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 d, and also the reverse giddy 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 gi, to get the back of the tongue to be a little bit stronger. So it's all simple in concept, but of course the application it takes some practice. So what we're going to try is just walking through some first-time double tonguing things. So I have this exercise right here. It's just nice and simple. I want you to try very slowly diggy diggy d, this very first rhythm right here. So say diggy diggy d and then play. So just try playing it. Diggy diggy d, ready, and depending on the person, sometimes tiki tiki t can be helpful. So just try the same thing on that low E again. Diggy diggy d or tiki tiki t, two, ready. So one thing about double tonguing, don't get discouraged if you're squeaking, because it's just part of the learning process. And so let's try playing this exercise right here. We're going to be playing it without the metronome at a tempo that when you play double tonguing, usually you're going to be playing it really fast, but at first you want to play it really slow, of course. So let's just try playing this all the way from low E to high G right here. So I'll count us off here. Diggy diggy dee, diggy diggy dee. Let's give it a try. 1, 2, ready. All right. So as you get higher, it gets a little more difficult, which is why these first exercises only go up to high G. So at the tempo that we're playing, you can single tongue this no problem, of course, but we're practicing the coordination of doing the double tonguing. So now let's try the reverse before we add metronome. Play gee gee gee, or you can think kitty kitty key, which I like a kitty key. Sometimes that kind of helps if you think of a certain word. So try the exercise doing the reverse. So you start with the back of the tongue to the front. Kitty 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 key. Let's try it. Kitty kitty key from this whole first exercise. So 1, 2, ready. Then let's try it with the metronome. So I'm going to put it on about 104. So this, when you are playing double tonguing, you're most likely not going to be playing it much slower than about 110. It's usually going to be when you're playing pretty fast, because as you can tell, the quality when you're playing kind of slower isn't as good. So when you play really fast, you don't notice the difference between the two articulation styles. So let's try this. We're going to try dugga dugga a little faster. Actually, this is 120. Diggy 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 diggy. Let's try that. I'll give you a count up. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you would want to practice the reverse as well. You don't have to always practice the reverse, but you want to go back and forth, like playing the kitty kitty key as well. Just to kind of show you what double tonguing can do, I'm going to put the metronome on at 150. So I would say I'm someone who doesn't have fast articulation, but if you're double tonguing, it's a lot easier to play for a long time without fatiguing. So let's just play just 3 measures here, and this is at 150. Let's see what happens. I'll count you off. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you might say this yourself. Tiki tiki ti, tiki tiki ti, tiki tiki ti. And let's try it. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so, I mean, that essentially is double tonguing. I mean, obviously, if you go into practice room, you're going to be able to, work on it individually. So these exercises, you gradually add more notes. This one right here can be really helpful doing scalar exercises. Is anyone interested in trying the double tonguing to demonstrate it, or would we want to keep going as a group?
Come on, be brave. I can try it. I'm terrible at it. I'll spot though.
It's okay. It takes a couple days for the squeaking to go away, because I started practicing these exercises 3 or 4 days ago, and I mean, you're squeaking like crazy. So it's normal to squeak and all that stuff. Yeah.
Okay. What should I do?
Maybe try don't play the first exercise, just and pick whatever tempo and just see if you can get the D, G, D, G, D. And it's fine if it's just really slow too. That's exactly it. That's it. I'm impressed. So now try the reverse and try to go do the key and try to have a hard K to get the back of the tongue a little louder. Key. That's perfect. Okay, so now try the so you would always want to do the diggy probably in performance, but you want to practice the key to get the back of the tongue stronger. Why don't you just try the first line maybe at a little bit faster tempo and see what happens. And it's okay if it's not completely even sounding. Okay. Nice. That is awesome. So is that your first time ever double tonguing?
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm impressed. So
I have some questions though. Can I ask questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, so for when I'm doing the back of the tongue, taka or tiki, I hear like a weird, like kind of pop. Is that normal?
Yeah, I think that sound isn't going to come across. It's kind of just a normal up close noise, but you won't hear it from far away. Yeah.
Okay.
And you might have some motion with your cheeks from the air, like pressure changing in your mouth, but that's pretty normal too. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anybody else want to try? Give it a go.
I'll give it a go.
Okay, Sam
Yeah.
is brave. We got another taker.
Excellent.
Should I just do the same thing Dr. Manassar did then?
Sure. Yep. That first one's good. What's your name, by the way?
Samuel.
Samuel. Can you say tiki tiki ti?
Tiki tiki ti.
And can you say kitty kitty key?
Kitty kitty key.
Good. Now tiki tiki ti and keep the K crisp.
Okay. Tiki
And then-
tiki ti.
Great. Now try it on clarinet. That sounds good.
Sorry, what?
That was good. Don't be afraid to articulate very hard, actually.
Okay.
That's good. Now try it even faster, maybe. Go diggy diggy dee, diggy diggy dee, and see what happens. So that is good. So the challenge is getting the K to stay to get the distinction between the front, the T and the key a little bit. So, but you're doing the coordination, and I mean, nicely done.
Thank you.
We have a question in the chat.
Oh, sure. Let me see it.
How do I get the back of the tongue tonguing sound as strong as the front of the tongue articulation?
Well, it's kind of a conscious choice. It doesn't naturally happen. So that's why I think it's good to practice the key to get the key, and then go back to the reverse, tiki. And does that answer hopefully that answers the question? Are there any other questions?
There's another comment. Let's see here. Sorry. Another idea, play with only K articulation from a bit?
Sure. You can, so clarinet, you can technically play clarinet without articulating at all. Of course, we don't want to be huffing and ha, but think of a hard K sound. And you kind of have to mess around with it, because sometimes if you think the G syllable, it works better than the K syllable, G, and sometimes less is more, just because so it's more of just trial and error and listening for the tone quality.
I think I have a dumb question.
Oh, okay, we have a question here and then one in the chat.
So the back of your tongue isn't actually touching the reed, right?
Right. It's hitting the roof of the mouth.
Right, okay.
So like basically like when you're saying I think it's kind of the most important thing is going between the front and the back. Da ga da ga da ga da da ga da ga da.
Good. And then we have a question in the chat that says, how can I get the higher notes above the staff to tongue clearly and not sound like mush?
Well, it takes time and practice, but what I would say is practice like high C, high B, and A without the register key. And I mean, that will tell you if you're getting the voicing correctly. So if you play high C without the register key, I mean, it's not pretty, but if you practice without the register key, it'll help you to learn to get the voicing right in the place. And sometimes it takes time, because I mean, I've been doing it for about 10 years. I mean, I don't think I've been working on it. I started working on it more in the past 5 years, and you can even go into altissimo notes. And I would say the key to getting double tonguing is kind of cool, because it teaches you more about your voicing. Because if you can get it even sounding, and if you can play double tongue on notes without the register key, then you know you're getting the voicing correctly, and you're physically playing the clarinet within the physics of the instrument.
When is the time that you use double tonguing? Like, what is, why should we learn this, I guess?
Yes. So double tonguing, as you can tell, it's not necessarily always, when you're playing double tonguing slow, it's not necessarily the best quality of sound. So it can be really helpful when you need to play a modern piece that's really fast, or you can play a classical piece at a fast tempo. Like Mozart, I don't think I would double tongue at 120 on Mozart, because you would hear kind of the unevenness, and it's possible to play it without double tonguing. So if you were to play the Mozart Clarinet Concerto at 132 with double tonguing, that's fair game. If you know the clarinetist Charles Neidick, that's what he's doing, I believe. And a lot of his music that is really, really fast, it's because he's double tonguing. And I think Dr. Manasra, we heard Charles Nidick at Clarinetopia, and I think he talked a little bit about double tonguing, and we are all just amazed that he was able to do it. So sometimes it just takes the knowledge of knowing that it's possible, and then you figure it out on your own, of course, with some instructions too.
Yeah, that was an incredible concert that we saw. Any other questions about double tonguing? Can you double tongue for us? Can you double tongue some scales so we can hear what it will sound like if we do 5 years of practice?
I'll try. Let's see. I'm going to play this exercise here. It'll probably help if I put the metronome on so I don't slow down. And maybe some high register stuff. And so forth. I would need to practice a little bit, but I would have difficulty. I wouldn't be able to do that if I were single tonguing. So for me, it's kind of an adaptation because I wanted to be able to play fast.
Yeah. So how often do you practice this? Like, do you just incorporate it into your daily warm-up?
I sometimes I pick particular music that showcases it. There's a Carmen Fantasy piece originally for flute, and the last movement would be impossible to play on single tonguing. So, but for daily practice, I think it's helpful to do within your scales and within your scales. So you don't want to not single tongue, but I think it's good to go back and forth. Double tonguing and single tonguing. The double tonguing can help your single tonguing. I think it definitely made my single tonguing faster. Because when you learn a different coordination, you start to realize where you're holding tension and more about the physics of the instrument. So when you practice your scales, you could maybe play slur to tongue to with single tonguing and then play it completely double tongued and all articulated, something like that maybe. Or these exercises right here, these are nice and simple. They don't go too high. So that's a good way to start double tonguing, and then once you feel comfortable with the like high G and high A, then you can start going into the higher register a little bit more.
Cool. We have another question in the chat. How can I get the articulation to sound less legato and more staccato throughout the registers?
Well, quick tongue releases, and also try to model your clarinet sound with how you articulate without the clarinet. I think it can be really helpful to do that. I mean, think about flutists. They, do all that beatboxing and they do crazy articulation stuff. Yeah. I forgot what the question was actually.
Oh, how can we get the articulation to sound less legato and more staccato?
Just put so think quick air puffs and just try to make it short, and it's still possible to stop tongue with double tonguing, I think. So the difference between legato, the same thing as single tonguing basically.
Cool. Any other questions? Yeah, we got another one here.
It's not really relevant to clarinet, but how does double tonguing feel different on clarinet as opposed to the flute and trumpet, like you mentioned?
Well, on clarinet, it's more uncomfortable because you have something in your mouth. So when you're playing flute, I mean, it feels different, but I think people get scared away from double tonguing on clarinet because of the quality of sound. Clarinet requires a really tight embouchure with high voicing. So sometimes people think it's not possible to to have a focused sound while double tonguing. But yeah, we can't see what's going on in our mouth. So a lot of it is using your speech and modeling it on your clarinet. And the power of willpower is pretty strong. I had, sometimes it just takes someone to encourage you, because I only had one clarinet teacher during my university education that taught double tonguing and said it was okay for me to double tongue. And then I developed it more, and he also double tongued. So sometimes it's the knowledge that it's possible to do, and then you adapt your body to it.
That's a really great point. That's actually how I learned how to circular breathe.
I'm jealous. I do not circular breathe. I should learn that from you.
I just had a teacher who did it, and I just fooled around and tried to imitate her. And one day I did it on a note and was like, what? And I kept going. So yeah.
Do you do it with your cheeks?
Yeah, I engage the bottom muscles of my throat as well. So I think people don't talk about that, but your cheeks don't have a ton of muscles in them, like the actual fleshy part. They have some, but the strong muscles are like your tongue and like the back, like the muscles you use to swallow. And so I kind of fill my mouth with air, and then I slowly use those muscles to create a speed of air, like a third lung. So I'm pushing that air through. So yeah.
That makes sense. I've heard of people doing it with their throat before, so that must be kind of the same. Oh.
Yeah, it's kind of like my lower throat a little bit. But I do puff my cheeks. My cheeks do puff. So.
Well, I mean, that's okay. I mean, same people. I mean, you want to work for it to not happen, obviously. But I mean,
yeah.
Articulation too. I mean, sometimes you're going to have movement. It's going to happen.
Yeah. I think, just a little bit lower than most people think up high. But yeah, just keeping the air low.
Wow.
Cool. So we, just for time, do you mind if we move on to,
Sure.
to try a little Gordon Jacob? So you have any movement, I'm assuming, proposed? Yes. Okay, so we can start anywhere. This is Sammy. Sammy is a fourth-year performance and music education double major here.
Awesome.
And members of my studio, take note, her senior recital is on the 24th at 2 p.m. It will be live streamed. So I'll let you take it away.
Cool. All right, we'll start with the first one.
Wonderful.
Ooh, these a little dry.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. I really like your tone and your expression. So I was thinking, I think you have a lot of really good ideas. I was wondering, so now that you have all these good ideas, could you maybe hold back any inhibition and try and go for them even more?
Yeah.
Sometimes for me, like, you don't have to think the word expressivo, but try to think about the drama of the piece, because you got all the notes here, and it will create kind of an atmosphere, and then the silence has a little like presence. Can you play the first two lines and just think about, now that you have the notes, just go for your musical ideas here. And one thing, the only technical thing I noticed is your tempo, your pulse was good. It just took until the second measure, I think, until you found your true pulse.
Yeah.
You think about the second measure there and the tempo that you use right there. Dee da dee da dee da da, and then start the piece with that tempo. Dee da dee da dee da. So try the first two lines and really just go for the musical line and telling a story.
Okay.
That was absolutely perfect. I mean, that would be the way you'd want to start a recital. Were you thinking about clarinet things, or were you thinking about musical things?
Mostly musical things.
I think that really helped, because before, I think there was some hesitation because you're thinking, oh, is this note going to respond or whatever? So sometimes we kind of want to distract ourselves, and we play these mental games just focusing on the music. But yeah, the way you played it right then, I mean, just continue with your conviction, and that first movement sounds great.
Awesome, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay. Do the waltz now.
Very well done. So you've learned this piece very well. I was wondering, have you ever learned how to waltz before?
Learn how to what?
Have you ever learned how to waltz before?
No.
I don't claim that I know how to waltz, but when my mom tried to teach me when I was younger, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So this piece, it's not necessarily that kind of waltz, but can you try to think of it in 3 and a little bit more horizontally, like dee da 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 dee da da dee da dee da dee da dee da dee da da. Always be thinking of the 3 and a little more horizontal. Can you try just the first 2 lines there and see if that makes a difference? Nice. Did that make any difference for you?
Yeah, it felt, I don't know, it felt more waltzy.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I mean it's nothing rocket science or anything, but it, it kind of helps you to think about the. What I heard is then it sounded like you were playing these beautiful four bar phrases, and they're these crescendo decrescendos, and can you try? So now can you try that in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 5th line, the 3rd measure? So this is where it starts to get a little hairy, right? Because it's a little faster and all that stuff. But see if you can try it thinking of this section in 3 and not letting it phase you. Da 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 dee da 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 dee da da dee da dee da 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 dee da. And then play maybe start there and then play for 2 lines or 3 lines there. Yeah.
Sure.
Good. Sorry to stop you. That was so nice because there was a line there that you're creating, even though you had all this 16th note stuff going on. Can you do the same thing? So now that and then try to keep the joy in the sound because it is a waltz and you don't want to be worrying about the technique or anything. Very nice. I love that. That was so good. And since it was so good, I have one more request. When you get to the forte, the second to last bar, second to last line, dee dee da 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 da. Can you keep the volume and not come back on the C, the dotted note C, da dee da 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 da. Good, great. And then because that's your kind of one of the climaxes of the piece.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
We have about 5 more minutes, I think.
Sure.
You want to hear one more?
Sure.
That was very well done. I mean, I don't really need to make many comments on this one because, I mean, you're, you're doing really well in this piece. But I do want to try and experiment. Can you try playing it and pretend it's in one? And see if that helps a little more horizontal quality. And this right here, since you have a lot of personality, can you kind of go for these? Be a little not sassy, but a little attitude. Maybe start right on that part right there. Good. And I really like how when the theme comes back, you're making a moment of it. And earlier you put a little some space, which was wonderful. And that's exactly what you want to do with Bach. So very nicely done.
Thank you. Who was that? Awesome. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right, so the last bit of this, I know this is a little bit of a hodgepodge, but I think as a teacher, one of the things that I really am trying to aim to do is fill in a lot of the gaps that maybe I can't provide. For example, double tonguing, I can't double tongue, but also like you're kind of in the midst of establishing, engaging yourself in the community. And the moment, I'll just tell everyone, the moment you are no longer that, it's like you forget. I wouldn't know what to say. So this is really helpful for everyone, and we would love to hear a little bit about what you're doing and how we can apply some of that to our careers.
Sure. So myself, I got a master's degree, and I got 3 clarinet degrees. I got my bachelor's in music, University of Texas, and then I got my master's and doctorate from Eastman School of Music. So I finished my doctorate about a year and a half ago. Of course, the pandemic is going on. So getting a university teaching job isn't necessarily, it doesn't always come immediately. Sometimes it takes time. You establish yourself and you start as an adjunct position. But if I were to say anything to kind of get the parts moving, there's not a one size fits all for someone's career. So I teach clarinet at 2 community music schools. The Hochstein School of Music, it's a local music school here in Rochester. It's actually about 120 years old, 100 years old. And then I also teach at Eastman Community Music School, but I also have a full-time job as a music director at a church where I play piano and organ and work with their choir. They have 3 different choirs. They have a chamber music ensemble. We invite guests in to speak. And so for me, I'm kind of in a transition period where, I didn't go to school to be a church music director, but you know what? We have to make a living somehow. And just because I'm doing this doesn't detract anything away from me as a clarinetist. And if anything, when you do other things, you can build skills that you wouldn't have otherwise. So with this experience that I have as a director of music, I get to work with choirs and I do get to play chamber solo concerts. And so I kind of use my position as a director of music for clarinet things as well. I play at this my job, every year we play a fundraising concert, a benefit concert. So this year we did it, and it benefited a local music education organization that provides free tuition to inner city students of Rochester, and then also Family Promise, which helps homeless people. So we did a fundraising concert which raised $700, and I also got to play and have a nice recording, and I've been doing these benefit concerts for 3 years, and I can tell you, it's awesome experience. I mean, it was really nerve-wracking to have to organize a fundraising concert, and every time we've done one, we've gotten more money. But it can be nice because it makes you think about how to connect with people in the community, like what are causes that are current. We've thought about doing a COVID relief concert. We might do that at the end of the summer. But even like with a full-time job and doing these other 2 teaching positions at the same time, it's really important to just keep playing and making opportunities for yourself. And over time, I mean, you build your reputation and you establish yourself in the area. There's regional orchestras that you play with. There's the New York State Ballet Orchestra. It's a local Rochester orchestra. I've been playing the Nutcracker for every year for 5 years. So that's experience. So you can still do all these things while you have a job and you're establishing yourself basically. And does anybody have any particular questions?
Oh, I have so many. I always have questions, but I'll let other people ask first. And then at the very end, don't let me forget, Deb asked one more.
I remember that one, yeah.
But we'll come back to that one if that's okay, Deb. So, any questions so far? Yeah.
You mentioned you teach like a wide range of clarinet players. How did you go about, I guess, like advertising yourself and gaining that wide range of students?
Well, it really depends on the area. So in my undergrad, I was in Austin, Texas, and there you can go into public schools and teach there. So what I contacted band directors in the area, middle school and high school, and I asked them if they had a need, and then I was able to go in and teach lessons within their facilities. In Rochester, New York, unfortunately, that is not the trend where you can go into public schools and do that. So here, I use community music schools, and I started as an intern at the Eastman Community Music School. I did that for 5 years, and you know what? I didn't get paid, what I would get paid if I were to be just teaching private lessons. It was a lot of it's just about the experience, and what's really important to stay with one place for a long time too. But you can also try the internet. When I've even gone to Craigslist and posted ads. This was before everything was on Zoom, and I got a couple Skype lessons that way. And you put flyers around your school, post things on Facebook, and ask people to share it. But even if you just have a couple of students, that really is good for development as an undergrad, because then you start to just really think about teaching and your own playing, and don't worry about the quantity so much as just the quality, and you'll learn a lot. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, other questions? So, in your undergraduate, now that, the hindsight is, always good, but I found, or I remember when I was drumming up work and beginning to freelance, that there were a lot of different skills that I needed to learn and use, that I had kind of learned along the way but wasn't aware that I'd learned. What kind of skills from, say, like your undergraduate or even master's, that are you using to network and engage yourself right now? Like, what should they focus on right now?
Well, I mean, your classmates are your friends, and they will stay your friends 5, 10 years from now. So, I mean, I went off and did my master's and doctorate at a different school in a different region, but I've stayed in contact with some of my old classmates and have gotten some opportunities that way. Um, and I think in undergraduate, I mean, it's easy to get stressed out about the real world. And I mean, you want to go out and, like, yes, we want to do gigs in the real world, but I mean, it's also important just to stay active at school. Like, I was really glad that in my undergrad, I did the regular symphony orchestra, but then there was a kind of a second orchestra. And in that orchestra, I learned so much repertoire that, I mean, it wasn't necessarily the best orchestra, but I would say try to do as much as you can without overworking yourself.
Yeah. As far as networking, what is your advice for, a great example is, this masterclass. As far as networking, what is your advice for how to conduct yourself on a regular basis?
I would say networking is not, like a multiple choice test. And it's kind of like fishing. You go out and you ask people, you say that, I'm interested in doing, teaching in the area, or teaching, like in this case, is a master class. But you get in contact with people, and a lot of it's just about being persistent, and it's really helpful to have a good support system, because if you take the advice of people that have been like your teachers, and they will, because we've experienced a lot of stuff, and sometimes it helps you skip a couple of steps. And
Yeah, I think I was surprised for a while there. I just kind of was waiting for people to ask me to do stuff. And because, the thing that you see is that there is an interview or an article or a masterclass or a performance. But what I think a lot of people don't realize is that behind the scenes, really nobody's going to walk up to you and be like, hey, do you want to play a recital at this festival or something? You kind of have to be proactive, and you have to tell people that that's what you want, so they know to ask you if they do ask, or you just have to tell them, I would like to do that, may I?
yeah, I mean, you have to create create opportunities for yourself, and you need other people for that too. So I mean, sometimes it's really nice to find someone that you work well with, and then latch onto them. And if you work well, you play chamber music together well, and you're willing to rehearse well together, then you can do multiple concerts with someone like that and get some good experience.
What about resume building? What kinds of advice do you have to build a resume, either for music education or performance?
Yes, so I think you don't have to do something special every year, but I kind of always took that point of view. I always tried to do something in the summer, like whether it's a music clinic, which music clinics that's for education majors or performance majors. These are kind of education, like Buffet has one. I did one with Howard Klug at Indiana University, and so they're not, crazy competitive. It's more of a learning sort of experience. So maybe starting with some sort of educational clinic, and it really has to do with your interests.
Attending one, not teaching one.
Oh yeah, attending one. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, yes, yeah. So just trying to be active and doing things. For us musicians, you can do clinics in the summer, so educational clinics where you participate, and there's also music festivals. There's a Madeline Island Chamber Music Festival. That's a really good one that I think is pretty close to you guys. There's also a Bayview Music Festival, which is in Michigan, not too far away. And some music festivals are super competitive, and some of them aren't too bad, and you get really awesome experience. You can also study abroad, and I believe Dr. Manesra, like you studied for your master's degree in England, or
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
so I mean that can be really helpful. You can also do competitions in music festivals abroad. That can be really eye-opening. Going to Europe, there's lots of festivals that are offered there. And let's see what other. I think that's all I was. Oh, yeah. So there's also music competitions. You can also take auditions for local orchestras, and that can be really, you can get a nice gig out of that, or it's also just good experience to do the audition.
So when you go into auditions and competitions like this or music festivals, do you ever go into, to win, or are you going in mainly for experience? Like,
Well,
how do you deal with the disappointment of gaining this experience but getting rejected at the same time?
it depends on the person. For me, the motivation was when you do these competitions, you get feedback, which is so helpful. They give you comments. So then every time, even if you don't win a competition, you go to another one and you take that feedback and you improve. And that is the motivation in itself, because I mean, that really gets you prepared well. And then eventually something will work out.
Yeah. Any other questions? Sorry, I've been hogging. Any questions at home about building careers, finding students, finding gigs?
One thing I was going to say, just with one other thing you can do is present research or play concert recital at conferences. I'm sure in Wisconsin you have a state music educators association. So I mean, there's going to be a local conference like that every year. There's also things like the College Music Society and the ICA, and the ICA has a really nice competition as well. That's a nice experience to apply for that one.
Yeah. Yeah, any other questions? Yeah, so let's go back real quick, if you don't mind, to this question about double tonguing. Do you ever mix up some double tonguing and single tonguing within the same lick?
I personally don't, but I know of people who do. Like for Mendelssohn Scherzo, they'll play it all single tongued except for maybe two syllables or something. They'll just insert a couple of double tonguing moments. But for me, I had difficulty switching back and forth. Maybe someday.
Yeah. Hashtag goals.
Yeah, right.
Other questions? I think I'd just love to tag on that, for those of you who are young students getting out in your career, one of the most important things is just to be nice to people. This whole masterclass series was done with a lot of donated time or exchanges. Because the pandemic happened, we didn't really have much of a budget. And most of these people, because we were nice to each other in the past, we remember each other fondly. And so a lot of this masterclass series is mainly because of seeds that were planted 6, 10, dare I say 18 years ago, And so, yeah, just try everything, but also you just never know who's going to be where. And so even if someone rubs you a little the wrong way, just be kind, because everybody's going through their own thing at that whatever moment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this has been really helpful. Thank you so much for joining us and working with Sammy, and also for the double tonguing. I'm going to practice it. I'm gonna do it.
You got it.
Yeah, we're gonna do it, and we're gonna send you a video of us doing it one day.
Please do.
All right, any last calls for questions? All right, thank you so much for joining us.
For inviting me. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Cool, I'm gonna stop the recording real quick.